Welcome back, ladies. This is the second session in our learning program, Provide Care for Babies and Toddlers. This session is Assist in the Transition from Home to Care. This training is part of your professional development program. By the end of the training session, you'll have the skills and knowledge to assist in the transition of a baby or toddler from home to your education and care service.
No, the mouse.
Right. We have a couple of housekeeping items. Please turn your mobile phones off again, and don't forget the feedback forms to be filled in and given at the end of the session. So I hope you enjoyed the half an hour break and got yourselves a cup of tea. And
Nice cup of tea and a Vicky.
And a bit of a stretch and a walk around instead of sitting all the time makes you stiff and sore. Okay, our agenda for tonight. We're going to summarise the session 1 that we've just finished. We are going to talk about how to use the information that we have gathered. We will talk about strategies for educators, strategies for parents. I'm going to give you a scenario that we can brainstorm together, and then we'll summarise and close the session. So here's our little fellow back again from our first session.
Can you make a bigger list?
Unfortunately, no, I can't.
Oh, okay.
I've tried. So off goes Dad again. And again we're very upset. Doesn't want anything to do with the caregiver that's in the room. Is becoming quite distressed. But Dad enters the room and picks him up and comforts him, and he settles right down. So in the first session we discussed where to acquire the information, tools that we could use, issues that may arise, consequences of not having enough information about the child, benefits of having heaps of information, and now in this session we're going to put it all together and use that information to assist in the transition of a child into your education and care service. Seems to be playing up. Right. So we're now going to discuss how to use this information. You could invite the family to visit the service before the child starts. So you've collected the information from the family. The child is showing that they could be quite distressed before they start in your education and care service. So therefore, using the information that you have gathered, You could invite the family to visit your education and care service before they start. How many times they might need to do this would depend on your observation of the child. It could be one, could be two, could be three times. It just depends on what you feel, in communication with the parents, of course.
I've had a couple that have come for an interview for a while and then just started with some half days and then
Right.
worked their way from
Work their way up
half days to longer days.
to a full day.
Depending on how they went throughout the day.
Oh, that's great. Did the parents stay for the whole half day, or did they
The first day, yes.
Yeah.
Or the first day they stayed for about an hour, then they left and then they come back and stayed for another hour.
All right.
Yeah.
And that seemed to help the child settle better into your care?
Well, it made the child more comfortable to actually walk around my service and you know, engage in something they wouldn't normally do if they were too upset to do it.
Oh, well, that's great, isn't it? Right. You could establish a goodbye routine with the parents before the child starts. So, communicating with the parents or the guardian or the caregiver is essential. And as an example, the routine could be that the parent says, oh, I'm going now, and then depending on their cultural differences, they might give the child a kiss, give the child a hug, pass the child over to you if they haven't not done that already, say goodbye to the child, wave and then turn and leave. It is not recommended that the parents leave without saying goodbye, as that would really distress the child. Because one minute the child might be playing and turns around and the parent's gone, and in their eyes it could mean that they might never ever see them again. So it's not recommended for the parent just to leave without saying goodbye to the children. So you could establish the goodbye routine before the child actually starts by using all the information that you had gathered before, knowing the cultural differences, knowing the child's strengths and likes and what they like and interests and that sort of thing. Working with the parent, you could establish a goodbye routine. Communicate with the parents before the child starts. You probably had already done some of this when you had your interview or even on the first contact phone call. And then your interview and the observation, or on the previous visits, if you had a child that had 2 or 3 visits before they actually start. You could talk about the health of the child. Have they got a cold? Are they teething? Runny nose? That sort of thing. The sleep patterns of the child. Do they have a good sleep? Or do they sleep well at night, and what's their sleep patterns? Are they restless? Or even possibly, do they need a sleep? That could be possibly while they're upset when the parents leave. They could be tired, it could be their nap time. You could establish this all before the child starts. Nutrition. Have they had breakfast? When was their last bottle? Do they need a bottle now? This could also lead to the child being upset. And a very important issue you should discuss with the parents is the emotional well-being of the child. So if you have a good understanding of their emotional health, you have a better way of dealing with the separation anxiety that's being presented to you at that time. All of this can also be spoken to about at handover time when the parent arrives. But again, if the child is very distressed when they come, and this happens every day that they come, you probably would be better off at discussing all this before the child comes into care. Maybe a quick SMS message to the child's parents before. How is Billy today? Has he had his breakfast? Does he need to sleep? You know, all that sort of stuff. So that when
I've got a new girl in care who's just over 2 and she has very bad separation anxiety, and it doesn't leave for, what, a good hour at least.
Mhm.
And even then when she goes,
So the parent stays for an hour?
no,
No, Mum.
mum goes.
Yeah.
She comes to me. She's not unhappy about coming to me, she's unhappy about leaving mum.
Right,
So
okay.
the separation anxiety is not of where she's coming, it's what she's leaving behind.
Right. Okay.
So, and she gets very upset, and anything, even changing from playing to eating, it
Right.
starts all over again. From eating to rest time, it starts all over again. And as I said, she's older than what you just like, she's over 2.
Yeah. Which is,
but
which
again,
can quite
from the
happen
information
quite.
that I've been given,
Right, yeah.
this is the first care that she's ever used.
Right.
She's never been in care before,
Right,
and she lives with mum, nan and grandnan
right.
all together.
Mhm.
So there's only ever been the 4 there's only ever been them. And she's she's never stayed at anyone's house, she's never been, it's only been them, so if ever she's looked after, it's by somebody that lives with her.
Right.
And they have began to see her own anxiety and her not wanting to separate from them, hence the reason they've...
Oh, so they saw that, so that's the reason they
That's
put
the
her
reason
into
they
care.
put her into care, is because as she was getting older, she was still quite
Heavily attached to
mum. And as much as all this information is good, it's still, all the information I got leads me to know what's wrong with her, and
Right.
as much as you try and comfort her, the only thing that is going to, get her to stop at that time is mum. So just making her as, outcome 1, making her feel secure and
Mhm.
and
So do you think
So-
the information that that you gathered from the parent, has that helped you to settle the child or cope with the situation?
yeah. It's also,
I think understanding the family structure and understanding their frustration has led you to understand what her problem is.
Yeah.
And
And
knowing
why
that
she
her-
gets upset. So it's not a question of you taking it personally, she doesn't like coming to be at your house
Yeah.
or play with the other children, because she does engage eventually with the other kids.
she does.
So that
She
would
does
go.
get quite, it's just good to know that her crying is pure devastation. It's not her being it's not a tantrum.
No.
It's physical
Yeah.
sadness.
Yeah.
Like
So
it's
you have a very good understanding of why this behaviour is being presented, and that's leading on to her emotional well-being, isn't it? So by having that information, you're able to cope with the situation better.
Yeah, and advise them on
and
that leaving it another 12 months is not going to make it any better.
No.
That
No.
continuing and having a routine and continuing her interacting with other adults and other children is only going to help her, as much as in the beginning she may struggle, but if they left it longer and it got worse, then it would be even harder for her to separate.
Well, yes, that's right. And that's very good. Thinking about it and processing it and putting it into action by her coming into care. Does she only come into care? How often does she come into care?
She wanted 1 day, but I've suggested 2 consecutive days just because once every 6 hours, because she actually only comes from 9 till 2.
Right.
Mainly because Mum doesn't think she could, either of them could actually cope with longer than those hours. So, and when I said, look, 6 hours once every 7 days, if we could do 2 days consecutive days, so she gets that constant,
The
would be better.
consistency
So,
in that for her.
so since she's gotten to know me, when Mum drops her off, she puts her arms out and she comes to me. She still is upset about Mum giving her to me, but she doesn't. Yeah, she's still.
So,
and then she looks to me. So she spends the part of the morning on my lap, and then she goes from on my lap to next to me, from next to me to the table closest to me, and then she ventures away from that. But that's a process.
Oh, well, that's
And
really
it's her
good process.
process.
And that's exactly right. That's what I was just going to say. It's her process.
Yeah.
You can also check that they have the comfort toys, the dummy or the rug or the blankie that they need, because in my experience, if they don't have that, well, it makes it a lot harder for you to settle the children, makes it a lot harder for the children for the day, and it makes it a lot harder for the educator for the day.
Her comfort is her bottle.
Right.
But because of her age, Mum had tried to eliminate that to try and get her off the milk.
Right.
But
Okay.
so we're working on that.
Oh, that's great. You could actually make a checklist for the parents, so that to ensure that we have a easy transition from home into education and care setting, that you can give the parents a checklist and ask them to check it off to ensure that we have everything that's needed.
That could be, it's a good idea to have a checklist on the way out as well, so that we don't forget.
For the child, sometimes,
you get that call.
Yes,
It's bedtime, can I just come and get that blanket now?
Did we leave her teddy there today, or his teddy there today? Exactly. So, just to go over that, establish a visits to your education and care service before the child starts, if need be. How many times depends on the child. Establish a good goodbye routine with the child. Communicate with the parents before the child starts, and again at handover time, because there might be something different. You know, the child might have had their immunisation shots the day before, and in my experience, the day after is usually they're quite cranky and they've got a sore arm and things like that, and all that needs to be taken into account when the child comes into care. Talk about health, talk about sleep, nutrition, emotional well-being, and also any comfort toys that they might need. And if all else fails, give the parents a checklist so that they can check it off before they come in, and you should be right. Now, our next discussion topic is strategies to use. And the first one is for the educator to be prepared. You've gathered the information, you've had observation on the child, you've had visits from the child, you pretty well know, pretty well have a good idea what to expect when the child comes into care, especially with the example that you've given about the 2-year-old child. You know it's going to be hectic, you know the child is going to be upset, so therefore be prepared for when that child comes in, and that might be that you have all the experiences set up, ready to go. You might have the other children that are in care off in another section doing a quiet activity, so that then you're free to comfort the child and devote your time to that child and settle them as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Again, develop that goodbye routine with the family, and also make sure that they don't leave without saying goodbye. You might be able to distract the child as you've gathered information of the child's interests. You could possibly have activities set up that's related to their interest. Show the child the activity. Encourage them to engage in that activity.
She's got a little doggy at home.
All
and
right.
I've got a dog, even though they're not allowed to interact with the dog. She calls the dog a woo-woo.
Right.
Which I'm assuming is like a woof-woof, like a...
So that's her word for the dog.
That's her word for dog.
Right. And you're using
I say,
that
come,
word?
let's go find the woo-woo in the windows, because my room has all windows at the back.
All right.
And Mum says goodbye, and we say, let's go find the woo-woo. And she goes and forgets for a little moment, and we look for the dog. So that kind of...
Well, that's great, because my next point was comment on an activity, like, as an example, oh Sally, look, here's that book that you like to read. Come over here and let's sit down and we'll read it together. So that's a really good example, Beck. You've observed that she's got a dog at home. You've got the information that she's got a dog at home, and you've got one. So you've put that two together, and you've been able to distract her by saying, let's go and see the woo-woo. And that's great. Another one is give the child some responsibility. I have actually used this myself over the years, and I found that if you give them, and what I mean by give them a responsibility is let them help set up an activity, and one works very well if it's of an interest of the child. So if you have a child that, say, likes trains and gets very distressed when the parents are leaving, come on, Bill, let's go and set up the train tracks. Well, where are we going to set it up today, and how are we going to set it up? I wonder where the train will go today. So can you go get the train set out for me? Give that child that responsibility. Or another way would be to ask the child, so what would you like to do first of all today, Mary? And if Mary says, play with the dogs, oh, well, okay, come on, let's go and get the dogs out. And what are we going to do with the dogs? Are we going to dress them? Let's put a new outfit on them. Oh, are they going to town? So give the child a little bit of responsibility. And as I said, over the years, on a number of occasions, that has worked really, really well. It distracts the child, the parents have gone, they've said goodbye, they've calmed down, it's an interest of theirs, and they then become fully engaged in the daily routine after that.
Also getting them to put their drinks in the fridge or their lunch, where the lunch goes, and put their bag on the bag hook, and that gives them a bit of responsibility.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, and that's relating to self-help skills, taking responsibility for their own property, lunch bags. Even if they take their shoes off, you might have a shoe box. Pick up your shoes and put them in the shoe box. All that sort of things will help their self-esteem. Also gives them time to focus on something else other than the parent has gone, and in that way they will calm down and be able to engage with the rest of the routine for the day. Sometimes you might just have to put the child to bed. It might be that they've had a restless night, the parents have come in, given you the information, Mary's been up all night, she's teething, she hasn't had much sleep, and she just is a bit beyond it now. She probably could do with a sleep. So you might just have to put the child to bed. Even though they're distressed, that might be why, and when they've had a sleep they get up and they're all happy as Larry, and you know,
sometimes
and
it's
enjoy the day.
Of giving them that time to just calm. Like I've got one of the children who, if there's too much going on in the room, she doesn't want to engage, so she sort of has to stand back and sit down, watch first, observe, and then with encouragement, then she moves in and starts to play.
After she tells people what to do for a
Yes,
little while first.
for a little while.
Well, but that's her way of calming herself down. That's her way of
Being involved without being involved.
Yeah, being involved without being involved.
Without
Or-
jumping in.
But also her way of coping with the situation that the parent has left. I might not get upset, physically crying or anything like that, but my emotional well-being might be a bit off because mum's left, but you know, I'm not going to really show anyone. So I'll just boss everybody around for a few hours and then I'll be right after that. Oh,
They
don't
control
we all?
the situation. I think for them it's a question of control. They're lacking in that control
Yeah.
situation. They've got no backup. Their parents are gone, which, you know, is their backup.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they've got to either figure out how they're going to venture into this place.
Very good. That's exactly right. Sometimes you might need to just feed the child. I mean, again, it could be a baby. They might be coming into you at 8:30, 9 o'clock. If it's a very young baby, they might have been awake at 5, so they're 4 hours, generally 4-hour feeds. Some have earlier, some have later. They're quite distressed when they come into you, and it might just be the action of giving them their bottle, and that will settle them down, and they can then interact for the rest of the day. But again, that's having that information from the parents that the baby, you know, woke at 5, had a bottle, but is probably due for another one now, so, you know.
I have two that refuse breakfast at home all the time.
Right.
They haven't had it, I'm sorry, they just didn't have breakfast. But as soon as they get in the door, it's, can we have some toast? Because 9 times out of 10 it's breakfast time, I'm having toast, so I'll put some more toast on. And that just sort of sets them up for, we're going to have toast, let's go have it. And then it's bye mum and it's off. They don't worry about it anymore, but they would have had a fight at home because they wanted them to eat breakfast and they didn't want to have the breakfast, and breakfast went all over the floor. So it's just that transitioning to the day. Yeah,
that's right. So they're picked up. It's pretty good to have breakfast at Cat's house because we get really nice toast. So they've decided that's how they're going.
My toast is magic toast, but anyway.
That's how they're going to cope with transitioning from home and from the hustle and bustle of getting up at home, getting up, get dressed,
Sometimes
get
the problem
organised.
is also that they get them up, get them in the car and bring them straight over, and they're still like
a bit
still waking
up. And when I know when I'm waking up, I'm not the happiest of people.
and I suppose that with myself, I don't like to be woken up.
No.
And as they're
Especially in winter.
Especially little children, they're little adults waiting to grow up, they probably don't like to be woken up either. So
having that information when they first get there, knowing that that's why they're upset.
Yeah.
Well, you could say, well, let me put a little pillow and blanket on the lounge and you can sit there and you can come out of that little cocoon when you're ready and I'll get you something to eat, and, you know, they're not just plonked down on the floor and said, see ya, play. Like, you got to know what's going on. That's why the information's so important.
Well, that's right. And you can use that to settle the child, make an individual routine for your child.
That's right.
Especially with the child coming in and they haven't had breakfast and they think, oh, well, we'll have toast at Cat's house. That's pretty good. So you've accommodated that. So again, they might not be showing anxiety in the physical way.
Yeah.
Their anxiety might be because they have to get up, they have to get dressed, they have to pack their bags, they have to be out that door by such and such a time, so because mum's got to catch that train and whatever. And so their anxiety is, I don't want to have toast, I don't want to have breakfast at home, you know, I'm not having it, you know, because it's too rushed, or it's too early, or they've been woken up, and or they don't like being woken. So their way of coping is, we'll have breakfast at Cat's. So that's their way of coping with the anxiety and the separation from the parent. So our next discussion point will be communicating with the parents, strategies for the parents. And I think the best way would be to, is with communication. You have to have really good communication with the parents when you have a child who has separation anxiety. One, it reassures the parents, because in my experience, when the parent walks out that door and you have a child that is really distressed and upset and crying, or that they're going out that door with them feeling so very guilty, and on occasion a few of them have been physically upset, or they might sit in the car out the front and have a good cry and then start the engine and off they go to work. So you really have to communicate with the parents very well. You can send them an SMS message. Mary Jo has settled down, she's off playing now. Billy is playing with the trucks and he only cried for a little while, etc., etc. You can ask the parents to phone through the day if they wish, or send you an SMS message or a message through Messenger, and you can reply when you have a chance. You could send them what you've been doing, sending them a photo of the child playing, so that reassures the parents that the child isn't sitting there all day crying in the state that they were when the parent left that morning.
I'll upload, before lunch, I might do 3 or 4 photos of them, the other kids, whatnot, so that they can get a progressive update throughout the day.
Oh, that's a really good idea, Beck. Do you use Facebook? Do you have a Facebook page? So you upload the photo onto there?
As we do activities, I'll put it on, and then when we do something else, I'll put it on, or sometimes I'll do it at rest time, because you don't always have time to do it, and it gives them, the parents can look at it throughout the day and see if there's anything there.
And that will give comfort to the parents.
I think also I've found that over the years, a lot of the parents are first-time parents, so they don't have the information that I've got from 27 years of experience with children.
Right.
So often explaining to them, yes, they might be upset, yes, they might cry, but it will take a period of time before that adjustment is made, so that they don't cry anymore, and they're happy to see me, and they'll jump out to their arms. Just keep holding on to that it will happen. Might not happen this minute, but keep that faith that it will. And I think with photographic evidence, you're backing yourself up, saying, yeah, yes, they cried for a few minutes, and I understand why they were crying, but they haven't cried all day. And I understand that you feel that they might have, because I was parent leaving my child in care as well. Empathising with them and understanding where they're coming from makes you a stronger educator in that respect.
Well, that's right, that's right. And I'm sure that the parents are very happy that you tell them all that, because otherwise they might become more and more emotionally upset. But if you reassure the parents that...
Because like I know they're settled, but a parent doesn't always know that. Like, it's their first time that they've had a child in care. They don't know all the rigmaroles or the ins and outs of it, or how children will behave, or how they're going to react.
No, that's right, that's right. Make sure you tell the parent or the caregiver how their child is settling into the care service. And by that I mean, it could be an example like they're taking a little bit of time each day to settle in. They have a little period in the morning where they cry, but once they calm themselves, they then get into the routine of the day and play with their peers and things like that. So, yeah, it's best to tell the parents how they're settling into care. Could have cried for half an hour and then got down and played. Kept coming back every so often to make sure that I was still here, and I gave them reassurance. and then they went off and engaged with the other children and played for the rest of the day. That's just an example. We just find that this helps the parents to settle down emotionally while they're away from the children.
And I think if you give them like a picture of their day, like a snapshot of what their day was like, it makes them feel better about leaving them in the first place.
That's exactly right. They can actually, if they have something concrete to look at, you can tell them and keep telling them, but if they actually see what's going on, they will feel much better.
The new baby that I had, she said to me that it makes her feel better because potentially I am a stranger to her.
Yeah.
She said, and I'm leaving my, baby, and I've got the brother as well. But she said, she has her opinions of me, which is why she is bringing the children back. But she said, potentially you're not related. You're not. I don't know you. I've got your phone number off a service.
That's right.
And she said, so, it's good to see what's happening because she doesn't,
No,
and then she'll
exactly
gauge
right.
their opinions of me by the way they interact with
That's
me.
right. And children are in care for a very long time, a minimum of 6 hours or 8 hours a day. And as in your instances of being family daycare educators, you work on your own. So therefore, taking photos and having that communication with the parents reassures the parents of what's happening in your service in the day, what's happening to their child, how they're engaging, what they're playing with, who they're playing with, and that gives more security to the parent. Also, ask for feedback on the goodbye routine. So if you establish a goodbye routine and you do that routine for a number of weeks and all the rest of it, and it's not working, you could ask for feedback from the parent. What do you think that we could do differently to help little Sally settle into care? Have you got any suggestions?
I've got one that's non-verbal, a little boy, and his mum, he doesn't make eye contact with her much either. But she always says his name so that she doesn't know that she's got his attention, but she always says it, and she always says, I'm going to go now, and says his name again, and I'll see you later this afternoon, and then she goes. But she does that every single day, even though he doesn't acknowledge that she's saying it.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's sweet.
Yeah, well, that's very good. That's very good practice on the mother's part. Even if you don't get a response from the child, at least that child is hearing that verbal communication between him and the parent. So, but if you have a child that is very distressed and you've worked out a goodbye routine with the parent, and after 6 weeks or 8 weeks or so, it's still very distressed and it's not working, the routine you've worked out, I would ask for feedback from the parent and have another conversation and say, we've been using the established routine now for 6 or 8 weeks. It's clearly not working. Is there something else? Is there any other information that you can give me to help the child to settle into care easier? And that way you're keeping the communication pathway open, and then eventually you'll find something that will help the child and settle the child down. Okay, so we're now on to our scenario, and this is just open for a general discussion between the group. We have a 8-month-old child who's coming into care. Lives with mum, grandma, great-grandma and great-grandpop, all in the one house. They do everything together. Child has not been in any other care environments, and mother states that the child is very clingy and frets when she is away, even when she goes to the toilet. When she has tried to leave her with any other person other than family members, the child gets very distressed to the point of making herself sick. The mother is feeling quite overwhelmed and is looking to put her into care. How would you help to transition this child into care?
Well, obviously you always start with the obvious things by collecting as much information as possible, but also making your home as homely as possible.
Right.
So the things that are available at her home would be things that you might have available at yours.
Mm-hmm.
So if she's got access to cushions and a pillow or whatever else, then you have those things at your home as well.
Mm-hmm.
Also maybe doing that transition where the parent comes with the child and stays for a small play session for a couple of weeks in a row, making sure that in the whole time you're engaging with her as well, so that she's becoming familiar with you, like you're an extra person in her family. Maybe she can take things home that she can bring back.
Oh, that's a good idea, isn't it?
You know, that makes her feel, anything that's going to make her feel more part of that, it's another home. Do you know what I mean? Or another place she normally goes to.
So you would gather as much information as you possibly could.
Yeah.
So going back to the other session, you would gather information about her likes, her dislikes, her interests, her strengths.
You could even have a photo of her family up on the wall.
That's right, really good. That's a really good idea, actually.
I've had a few parents that have done the little photo books that they can just put in their little backpacks and they can take it out and they can talk to the other kids about who their family members are. You can bring it out. Anything that's going to make them feel more attached to you.
So with this child, you would have to be really prepared.
Yeah.
Because you could see by the information that's been supplied by the parent that the child would probably be very distressed when the parent leaves.
Consistent.
You have to be consistent, that's right. You would have to establish a goodbye routine with the parent, and as Kath, you said, have visits before the child starts, let the parent stay on those visits, and then you yourself would have to establish a routine of settling the child. So that might be that you would, as Beck said she did with her little girl, she would sit her on her lap and let her stay there for however long. You would comfort the child, you would hold the child gently, you would talk to the child, you would reassure the child, but you would have all this established before the child actually started care.
Yeah.
So there's some really good ideas there, ladies, for this scenario. Okay, so just to summarise this training session, we talked about how to use the information that we gathered, what to do with that information, having the family visit before the child starts, establishing a goodbye routine, communicating with the parents, which is either before the children start and definitely at handover time, each time the child comes into care, ensuring that we have everything that the child needs, as in soft toys and dummies and blankies and all those sorts of things. Possibly making a checklist for the parents so they don't forget and that doesn't cause you too much stress. We talked about strategies for the educator, to stay calm, know what to expect, develop the goodbye routine, ensure that the parents don't leave without saying goodbye, because that will cause the child more distress. We've talked about distracting the child, having activities set up for them, giving the child some responsibility, or even putting them to bed or feeding the children. We also talked about communicating with the parents to reassure them, telling them what the child's day is like. We've discussed our scenario, and now this brings us to the end of our training session. Thank you for participating. If you could fill out the feedback forms, that would be really great. You had lots of great comments. You were very engaging and lots of great ideas. And there's no assessment.
No assessment on this task.
No assessment on this training.